The right to life should apply to all black men, whether on the street corners or in the classrooms or either in the workplace. Everybody should have the right to live their lives free of fear, and everyone should be treated with dignity and respect.
I can't lie, I almost cried when I seen the video of Tyree Nichols. And I can't lie, another 100 times I come with costume killers. Next time that we should rise above. Another mama crying, another flying dove. Another brother dying, oh Lord. Another sad situation, oh God. I feel the pain inside my bones. It hit me hard, it got me feeling like my soul crying. And yeah, it's true, they say the good die young. First you hear and then you go. Another story, another song crying. But hold on, and I know you been holding that pain in for so long. Don't trip, be getting bout, they say no pain, no gain. Gotta stand tall in all weather, cause when it rains and storm, get an umbrella. Next time that we should rise above. Another mama crying, another flying dove. Another brother dying, oh Lord. Another sad situation, oh God.
I'm Vakelvian Holmes, mother of Eric Holmes, murdered by a Clayton County cop back in November 2022. All I'm asking that is the law do their job while I try to survive. Eric Holmes, saying his name till the day I die. We won't stop.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. We want to bring you some information, okay? Just another call. Justice was served in its own way. However, this officer is still a police officer, and that's what we're going to work to try and stop. So it's still justice for Eric. At the same time, it's letting everyone else know about any injustice that we face and changing the narrative to what was brought out. So the young man that you see on the stream is still William Lynchshire. His sister is on the oh, okay. So that's incorrect. So we have, I'm going to introduce to you the relative of the young man that we have on the stream. She will be able to discuss his death with you. I haven't been able to get too in depth to the situation. I know it's something that Meg has been working on. She's been strong about it since before time, before I even heard about him getting, you guys going through with civil matter or what have it. So I do want to bring you on, let you introduce your brother and what happened to him, okay? So I'm Vakelvian Holmes, your host of Changing the Narrative. We have William on here with us as well. You have Meg that's not available right now, but I want to go ahead and get into the story. I do want to show you guys you see this picture up of him, and I want to show you this picture here. Okay, I want you to remember them as a family member, okay? So I'm going to let his sister go ahead and speak, and she'll just give you guys a short version of what happened or whatever you decide to give, okay?
Yeah. Is that me?
Yes, so it's on you.
It's like, okay, yeah. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, that is my brother Andy, and that is his now 10-year-old son, Andrew. He has another son as well, a 5-year-old. And yeah, I mean, basically he was the fourth person that was killed by one specific officer, Jay SPLAIN, here in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. And I mean, it was similar to the previous 3 incidences. He was kind of in crisis, mental and substance abuse crisis, and the officer was basically called to respond. He was going through a situation. Amy, his 20-year girlfriend there in the picture, Andy's substance abuse had gotten to the point where she was ready to leave him. And the entire month prior to his death, they were dealing with, that crisis basically of her, pulling away. She moved about a half a mile back down the dirt lane. And during that month, she did file a protection from abuse against him because, he was very badgery. He was really trying to to get her to reconsider. And when she got the PFA, it was specifically because he definitely had trouble with controlling, like reaching out to her, at inappropriate times. And, he was kind of relentless. So while he never actually got violent with her, during that month, he was threatening to commit suicide. She was like deeply scared that, with the state that he was in mentally, that he might, I don't know, like even like kill himself in front of the children. So she felt the need to get, some legal help. And, that's where the evening of his death, he actually had the two boys at his residence up the dirt lane. And he had kind of been like texting her all day long. And she had sort of had it, with the texting. And so she actually called to report that, because it was a violation of what their agreed upon, protection from abuse guidelines were. And so she called these two officers. Well, I mean, she called the police basically, and these two officers came to the scene, and she explained to them what had been going on. And even while they stood there with her, she got a text message that said, I need a thermometer for Andrew, or, something like that. And she showed it to them, and they said something like, we need to get back in the car and see what the on-call DA wants us to do about this. And she thinks it was about 5 to 7 minutes that passed, and she stepped back inside because it was cold. And in that period of time, Andy actually like arrived in his like red Volkswagen Beetle to obtain a thermometer from her. And, who knows what, like if he was using that as an excuse to come there or what, but he wasn't supposed to be on the property. So basically the next thing that Amy heard was gunshots, and she came running out of the house, and she actually heard Andy communicating, to her. He knew that she was there. He was yelling to her like, Amy, they shot me. Oh my God, I can't believe you shot me. And I gather that they were yelling commands at him. And at this point, she recalls him being tased and losing control of the vehicle. She said the vehicle became like kind of, she could tell that he was not in control of the vehicle anymore. And it was at that point that more shots were fired. And I believe from the autopsy, 3 ended up in his shoulder, and 2, he was shot twice in the head. So then his vehicle came to rest in like some bamboo that was probably like 20 feet behind like where the vehicle originally was. And the other thing that's difficult for anybody who was not there to picture is the way this property was set up, that the police came in from one driveway, and my brother actually approached from like the old right of way of the property, which you wouldn't know about if you hadn't like, he was 40 years old. He grew up like on this land. My mother's home borders the property that he was actually killed on. And then he bought a home like a little further up the dirt lane. So he actually approached from a driveway that was like grass covered. It wasn't even a real driveway. And so, I try to give the benefit of the doubt that maybe there was the element of surprise, that like he was sort of it could have looked like he was rolling up out of the middle of the woods, in all honesty, because this wasn't a driveway that would have been known to the police officers, because it wasn't the road that they came in on. So, Amy distinctly recalls his vehicle, his foot was just like jammed on the gas, and the vehicle was in neutral. And she remembers the sound of his car just sounded like it was going to explode while he laid there basically dead with his foot just on
the gas.
On the gas with the car.
Yeah, and he lost control. I mean, his feet was on the gas because he was shot. So it's down, it's steady going.
Definitely. And I think it definitely it doesn't make sense, in the report they talk about this like him putting it in reverse and then taking the car forward and backward. It was a manual car, and at the moment of his death it was in neutral. So I just it's very hard to picture he's being shot and he's there like putting the car in in first gear and in like reverse and backing it up. And so, I mean, there's so much about what was reported by the police and what Amy witnessed, and, you know, just the
I'm
laws of nature, you know?
I'm gonna say this, and I'm not cutting you off, but I'm gonna say this because I want people to be clear. And I've said time and time over again, when you're calling the police, be mindful of what you say, because what you say is how they come onto a scene. Okay,
Yeah.
so we got to be mindful of what is said. Now with Andy, we know that the officer is wrong. Why? Because you had a civil case that they're going into. So what they do is they want to civilly be wrong, but they don't want to criminally be wrong. So despite of what, his sister was able to tell us about what him and, his kid's mother was going through, despite of any of that, it still don't give him a reason, a justifiable reason to be dead. But we also want to be mindful of how we're calling the officers, and alerting them out to these things. I'm not going to be on here long. I'm going to leave you and Meg with the podcast. What I do want to say to all of our viewers is Andy shouldn't be dead if the police was called out for help. Not only that, if he's not trying to kill you, don't kill him. The officer that murdered Andy has already murdered 3 people. Andy made the 4th. Once again, the officer that murdered Randy has already murdered 3 people. Andy made the 4th. People, we got to make it matter to us. All of these narratives sound the same. Yeah, they ran. Yeah, his feet was on the grass. Yeah, he tried on the gas. Yeah, he tried to run over the cops, or whatever it is that you guys want to say. But why are you allowing yourselves to be civilly wrong if you can't be criminally wrong? So the fact that you're admitting to civil is admitting to guilt. So I'm just going to ask that everyone make sure this officer is off the force, okay? We don't need him with a 5th victim. Andy is going to get his justice. It's already begin to come. And I'm here with you, sister. If I can do anything, I'm going to get back inside of this building, but I just wanted to step in, number one, to meet you. Number one, to say, I know Meg been rooting for Andy for a long time. I've been seeing his picture even before now. And to let you know that no matter what the story is, and you don't even have to give anyone else the story, you don't even have to tell them what it was that Amy did. Okay, yeah, Amy called the police, but guess what? We're not going to even stress that anymore. We're going to stress the fact that it's an officer that's on the street that should not be on the street. This officer has already murdered 3 people, and he made his 4th individual. And I want us to stick to that narrative, because a lot of times what we put out is more onto what they have already given. And they've already made our loved ones look bad. So when we come back and we give that story over and over again, it's kind of like they're hearing the same thing. So let's give them the facts. Let's give them the officer that killed Andy is on body number 4. Andy made body number 4. Let's give them the fact that the officer that murdered Andy, he's still a police officer on his
Absolutely.
4th body. So in changing the narrative, I want to make sure that we're sticking to the facts that Andy never deserved to die. I don't care if Amy called the police or not. I'm asking you people that are calling the police to be mindful of how you call the police. But in my eyes, in the civil, if you want to charge him with civil eyes, the officer was wrong. And it's no other way around it. So nice meeting you. I love you. I'm going to get back in this building. I'll see you again. It's justice for your brother every day. And if you can do anything for me, don't never get what Amy said again, okay?
Thank you.
Please, because Andy don't deserve it. Andy deserves to be alive. And he don't deserve for whatever story they want to be told to continue to be told. Because that's the problem. They train our minds to repeat what it is they said. It's not about what they said. It's about the fact. The officer got 4 murders on him at this point. Okay? The officer is still a police. That's the facts. We're not giving you your same story back that you're killing us with over and over again. Justice for Andy. I love y'all. I'm gone. I'm out here in Ohio. And I'll see y'all later. Y'all keep going, okay?
Great. Take care,
Thank
Mama.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Much love, Miss V.
Love y'all.
Yes. Sorry,
All right.
I was having some technical issues before we were joining, and I just could not get logged in. So I do apologize. I missed you guys. Autumn, nice to meet you.
You too,
in
Meg.
person finally. I've definitely been talking to you for so long, and I'm so happy that we're able to, provide the space to give you a platform to amplify his voice. Um, and Miss V was completely right. Like, Andy definitely did not deserve to die. It's something that we keep hearing over and over again. That, especially with this situation of Jay Splain being, having four victims. That's not, he's definitely breaking practices and protocols along with the district attorney, um, who, for anybody that doesn't know, the Lebanon County District Attorney is married to a supervisor with the Pennsylvania State Police. That's a huge conflict of interest. And the fact that she even didn't exclude herself from even trying this case is very shady, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. And more so the third killing, that from my understanding, her husband was in like direct supervision over Officer Jay Splain, and recently she did get privately reprimanded, and the news reported that she chose to make it public.
Wow.
And I don't really, that she did not recuse herself of that third investigation. And it definitely is it kills me because had that third investigation maybe gone the way that it should,
Right.
cam footage is like made public, and I mean anyone who watches the dash cam footage of the third killing could see like this officer clearly departed from protocol to kill this woman, and it's just difficult to live with the reality that had that officer perhaps not had a gun after that third killing, my brother would definitely be alive.
I hate to interrupt there, but is that the video that I saw where he shot someone in the back of the head from behind their car?
Oh no, that was the second one that you're talking about.
He's showing a definite tendency to open fire on people in their vehicles. People, and I believe most police departments in our nation have turned away from the idea of chasing or firing in moving vehicles because, number one, it's excessively dangerous and unreliable, and number two, highly ineffective.
Right. Yeah. Very true. And for them to be able to get any kind of negligence lawsuit going, the clear fact here is that they are definitely criminally negligent. At what point does because we have to remember too, the district attorney is who takes these cases in front of the grand jury for an indictment. So what
either negligence or intentional action had to be determined for there to have been a settlement.
Right, exactly. So there's definitely criminal activity going on. And what was it that you were saying, Autumn, about the girl? I don't know about this one, excuse me.
Oh, Charity Tome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that
was that 2020 or 2021? I'm getting my dates wrong.
It might have been 21. No, 20, because I think it was like a 18-month search.
He was still being investigated for that one in a federal case at the time.
Yeah.
And so they still had him in the field, even though a federal case was pending against him in which a person was killed during a mental health crisis. And they put him out into the field and continued to send him out on calls for people suffering mental health crises. So this is not even just a case of Jay Splain being a problem. Obviously, he is.
Nationwide problem, right?
But it tells you right there that the mentality of the commanders and the sergeants needs to be addressed, and they also should be removed from their positions. They have no business sending people out on those calls who have a history of shooting people in the head during a mental crisis.
Yeah,
exactly. Agreed.
So this doesn't just stop at looking at Jay Splain, who should be behind bars. This also should be continued to be carried on through the entire Pennsylvania State Police chain of command.
Right.
Definitely.
And what's so crazy too is like 4 people, like how he's like living the best life, like you can legally kill people and get away with it. And that's not okay, like whatsoever. He definitely, there's ways that cases can be reopened or re-examined once a new DA is put into office. So our real, goals within changing, or at least like trying to, change the system as it is just get these bad DAs out of there. Like it's crazy and it's horrible. And I couldn't imagine. Like, so Andy leaves behind 2 sons, you said? Oh
yeah. Yeah. And it's you know, Amy didn't know how to like tell her boys what happened for days. She opted to like tell them that he was in jail because she just couldn't bring herself to tell them that a police officer like killed their dad, you know.
Right.
I
How old
couldn't
are they?
imagine. They were like 9 and they might have been 9 and 5. No, 9 and 4. I'm not actually sure, but just little guys, you know.
Right.
They definitely deserve better than that, but
100%.
yeah, and you know, their home is out they basically have to drive past the Jonestown State Police Barracks every day, and the car that my brother was killed in just sits in the impound lot right off of the police barracks. And I mean, it is a daily, it's like a coffin, you know, that just like sits there that my brother was murdered in. And I just can't, I don't know who I could like write to or try to like raise awareness that like maybe this car just sitting there every single day and my mother lives back there, my other 2 brothers live back there, like they have to drive past this vehicle that he was killed in every single day, and it's just kind of
That's
I don't know.
traumatizing. That's triggering for sure.
Extremely triggering, and I know that's not any concern of theirs, you know, like the collateral damage to people's lives when something like this happens.
Right.
I mean,
Their job is to protect their assets, which is so sad, but that's their asses, you know, like their job is to protect their assets. They don't care about us. And that's, you know, like some of them do, not all, you know, I am one of those people that not all police departments are bad. Not all police officers are bad. There's like 5% whenever an apple or a strawberry gets moldy, the whole you know, thing slowly goes rotten. So we have to keep them, you know, accountable and transparent of their own actions. I would say, so the person, I'm not sure, well, was we able to figure out who was ahead of the Pennsylvania State Police?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I realized I was muted. I actually only found their chain of command. I did find the current commander in Lebanon, but I don't know if this is the same person who was serving in that role at the time of Andy's death. But currently, it's a Sergeant Matthew Klein.
Okay, do we have his email address by chance? Is that on there or no?
I didn't get that far. I can get that and post that up here later.
Yeah, we can get that for you, Autumn, and we'll do that as well, because I couldn't imagine like having to drive past a scene every single day and just being constantly reminded that your brother was murdered.
Oh yeah, and I mean it's like
nicely, the fact of like the matter and what gets people's attentions I'm learning in this movement is he was murdered. He was suffering.
I can give you a contact number here if you want.
I'd love that.
All right. Jonestown, Lebanon, Sergeant Matthew J. Klein. We've got 717-865-2194. I've also got their fax number if anybody who is watching or listening would like to send them some nicely worded fax messages or keep their machine printing out ink for a little while would be a nice fun use of resources. Is 717-865-0467. Send them a whole bunch of pictures and letters from the printout and use up all their time and ink.
Yes, 100%. We'll post the email address as well in the comments. We love to I don't want to say harass, but we love to like make these public officials accountable for their actions. So the district attorney, I'll get the district attorney's email as well for anybody listening that can join in unity and solidarity with this family. Andy did not deserve to die. He deserves to still be here, to be a father to his children, to have a tomorrow, to be able to breathe his last, you know, his next breath. This should not have happened. There should have been de-escalation training. There's definitely practices, procedures, and protocols that were broken. And then I just want to jump in real quick to what the media portrayed, because now we have an idea, you know, of what really happened. And this is an article that I actually found online. Let me see if I can find it here.
A report in the New York Times details that Trooper Jay SPLAIN is now on desk duty after his 4th deadly police shooting, 4th, the most recent in November. A Times review of the killings found inconsistencies between the evidence of what occurred and what the officer claimed happened. One former longtime police chief who now helps run a policing research institute called the 4 shootings a red flag, telling the Times, quote, 4 is incredibly unusual. That is out there on the edge. Even if the shootings can be legally justified, the pattern needs to be examined very closely to determine why the same officer repeatedly resorted to deadly force. Because they can, it doesn't mean they should. Joining us now is one of the New York Times reporters who wrote about this story, Kim Barker. Kim, take us through these killings and also why this officer is still on the job.
Sure. Thanks very much for having me. The first killing happened in 2007. And that was an instance, like with a lot of these instances, where it's a mentally ill, troubled person who somebody had called for help. He had threatened to kill himself. He was in a very rural area. And so Trooper SPLAIN and other troopers showed up. And what ended up happening is the man was inside the house. There was a friend in there with him. His sister had called police and said he was suicidal and he had a gun. So for whatever reason, we don't know exactly what happened, but Trooper SPLAIN and another trooper went into the house, rushed in there, got the friend out. And then the man, Joe Rockowitz, was holding an Uzi, right? And the way it was described to by the officer and by the state police, in fact, is that the man had pointed the gun at Trooper SPLAIN. We later found out that the man indeed had the Uzi taped to his chest and his neck, and the gun was actually pointed at his chin. And it could be that he pulled the gun down. We don't know that, but it was never sort of discussed publicly. And that, in fact, is the incident that Jay SPLAIN won Trooper of the Year for. And he was a fairly new officer on the job. There was nothing until 2017. And then it was another very similar circumstance where a mother had called and said her son, who was addicted to drugs, was suicidal. And so they showed up and, urged her to call him back because he was on the run. And he came back because he thought he was going to get some money. And while he was in the car, instead of trying to de-escalate the situation, the troopers ran out and allegedly saw the man lighting something. He had threatened to blow his head off with a bomb. And they ended up, instead of backing up or trying to talk the guy out before they got into that situation, they shot him, right? So that's the second one. The third one happened in March of 2020. And that was when this woman named Charity Thome was, again, troubled, mentally ill, addicted to drugs. And she did not stop when police were trying to pull her over. Now, the initial police officer who was following her was not a state trooper, and he had wanted to call off the actual chase because it was in the middle of the night and people were not in danger. And so he'd wanted to do that. He'd radioed that in. But by that point, the troopers had joined. Again, it was Jay SPLAIN and a rookie officer. And what ended up happening is there was a chase. SPLAIN engaged in a sort of what is called a pit maneuver, a dangerous driving maneuver to force her off the road. She goes off the road. She ends up driving her car into the police officer who had started the chase's car at about, he later said, at 5 miles an hour. And for SPLAIN and the rookie, that was enough. They jumped out and, again, ran over right away within seconds and ended up shooting Charity Thome in her vehicle. The most recent one was a man by the name of Andy Dzwonchyk. That happened in November. And that was an instance where Andy was, again, troubled. He was addicted to drugs. He had a protection order against him from his girlfriend who, was complaining that he had threatened to kill himself in front of their children and was badgering her to get back together with him. While she called in a violation of that protection order, it was, at night in a rural area, again in Pennsylvania, Jay SPLAIN and another trooper showed up. And while they were there, she got a text, and it was from Andy. And he said that one of the kids was sick. He was looking after the two boys, and he wanted a thermometer. She went back inside. The troopers were outside. It was cold. And the next thing anybody knew that happened was Andy drove up. He was staying just a few blocks down the road, and he was shot. And the police later claimed that he had dragged the other trooper back and forward, and so Jay SPLAIN shot him. But the really crucial thing in all of this is that nobody knew, that nobody said anything about there's this guy out there on the force that's killed one person, that's killed two people, that's killed three people, and now has killed four. It was always an anonymous trooper. And in every single case, the state police, the same officer from the same troop was actually involved in leading the investigation.
Kim, Mara Gay, incredible reporting. Thank you for that. I just, part of the concern here is that because we have such a decentralized series of police departments across the country, I'm just wondering, from your perspective in this deep dive, are there some changes that can be made at a systems level to prevent this from happening and to hold these officers accountable? I mean, one thing your story focused on, for example, was making sure that investigations are independent. I mean, are there some best practices that citizens and others can call for across the country to make sure that those kind of officers are off the force, or at least getting the help they need to be better officers?
I mean, it's incredibly difficult to get an officer off the force unless they're convicted of a serious crime, as you know, because of police unions. There's a process, and unions defend their, members, and so that's difficult. But what I think you could call for is accountability, is the idea of having some sort of federal database that lists use of force incidents, so you at least know the officers and what they've done and.
Summer is ending, but the savings are endless at Bob's Discount Furniture. And this Labor Day weekend, I'm throwing a summer.
Folks, if we're going to win re-election, I need you by my side from the very start. Whatever you're able to chip in, even if it's just a buck.
Or we want to turn now to a stunning investigation into a report in the New York Times details that Trooper SPLAIN is now on desk.
All right, guys, we are back.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that gives a pretty good narrative of what happened? I'm really happy that those big companies was able to highlight the stories of the poor people, because this was going on right in front of our faces and nobody really knew about it.
Yeah, and actually Kim Barker, that reporter, I took her out to the scene of the crime, and I talked her through all of it. She got to see exactly where it took place, and it was pretty intense. She met my brothers, and she definitely had a really, a serious effect on that story, getting as much attention as it did. And I really appreciate her for that.
Right. No, 100%. And, it definitely brought awareness to a nationwide scale that it needed to be done, for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, during their story that they were doing, they really brought up an excellent point about how there are no national databases for these sort of behaviors. So even if we were to get somebody like SPLAIN taken off the force, there's absolutely nothing stopping him from crossing the border over into New Jersey or Ohio or New York and getting a job with another state police or local department and performing more of the same acts on a brand new community. Just like, we see offenders get moved around all the time. Now,
wow.
One thing I'd like to say that we could do, and that I would like to see more of, is as they've done in New York City. I believe it's 50A? Where they've got a website set up where people can look up the officers by name and badge number and find out what sort of history they have. That's only going on in New York City, though. If we can push for other state and local police departments to be obligated to do that and to create some form of transparency, then we as citizens can keep track of who is doing what and keep an eye on who is policing our communities.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I apologize over my technical difficulties. It's always going to be something. It's always something, nothing, and everywhere, all the time.
Definitely.
But thank you so much again, Autumn, for joining us. Will, thank you. Sorry, my son's in the background, featuring Trista Rue here tonight. But we're going to end If there's anything that you guys could do to help, call the district attorney for Lebanon, ask or request that they resign immediately, based on the conflict of interest that's constantly occurring there. And we will post the links as well.
Ask them to do the humane thing and move that car out of sight while they're at it. That would only take them 5 minutes worth of effort to just park it out back somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And stop triggering and re-traumatizing the family every single day that they have to drive through.
We love you, Autumn. Thank you so much for coming on here and for sharing your story. It really means so much to everybody, and we really appreciate you. And we're so sorry that you have this story to share. Nobody should be dealing with this.
Right.
Thank you.
100%.
I really appreciate what you guys are doing, because there isn't enough, it's not my best party trick to pull out this story, but I will talk to anyone that will listen, because it's in our own backyard, and it's kind of it's the worst. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
We're here for you, honey. Please let us know if we can do anything more to help further your cause here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning into Changing the Narrative. This is your girl Meg, joined by Will and Autumn. Everybody have a good night.
Y'all have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Act like these black lives don't matter. Like that could have been your sister or your brother. I was trying to tell you to hold on. Hold on.